Welcome back, everyone. Well, I have a brand new HO scale kit. It's called MJ's Bookstore. The kit is named after my wife, Maitri Jensen. She loves to read. She actually reads every single day. She was so excited when she saw the finished build with her name on it. All right, well, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to build the kit. Now remember, if you are a paid Patreon member, you receive a $9 discount. And the discount code can be found on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jason Jensen Trains. And again, you have to be a paid member. All right, we have a lot to do, so let's get to it. So I actually just finished building the model and I made a big mistake. The bay window that's in the front of the store, I glued it on upside down. So when you're watching the video, keep that in mind. Actually, the thick part goes at the top and it matches the thick part that is above the front door. And the thin part goes at the bottom. So keep that in mind because there's also a shelf or a little bench seat sort of that goes in the front window that gets glued in. And then there's a top piece. So I will completely explain it at the end of the video and show you the correct way. So I just wanted to give you a heads up while you're watching the video that the bay window just gets reversed. All right, let's get on with the video. Okay, so here's all the parts that you get in the bag. Okay, we're going to take this piece, we're going to spray paint. We're going to do a dark blue. So we're going to paint this. We're going to cut out the pillars and paint those. And these three pieces. Okay, we have our three pillars, this sheet, and these parts here. Now, it's important that this one, you paint both sides. And then your pillars, you're going to want to paint the front and each side. Okay, so all of our parts are blue. I first sprayed it with this matte ink blue. It put kind of a shiny finish on it, just slightly. So I then just very quickly brushed over everything after it dried, of course, with Royal Navy. And this gave it a flat finish. Then, you definitely don't have to do this, but after that completely dried, I went over all of these parts with murky brown. Okay, now we'll go ahead and get all of the parts cut out of the sheet. And it's a little easier if you do it from the back side. You can see where all the tabs are. Okay, all of the parts are cut out. Now you're going to want to take your clear plastic that comes in the kit. Take this piece right here. And we're going to lay it face down. And you're going to take your blade and score or cut out each panel. So there's 3 panels because this gets folded in. Now you don't want to go too high or too low because these pieces here, one is a shelf that gets put there, and the other one is on the top. So let me cut these and get them glued in, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Now to glue our plastic windows in, I'm using Loctite super glue. We'll go across the bottom and the top. Put a little bit through there. I was just smearing it. I wasn't really putting any out. I don't know if you can see that. So then what I do is I dab it over the entire piece. Then we'll start with the center one. Okay, so I've got three. I've got a square piece and then a rectangle and a rectangle. They have to be separate so that you can fold these in. Now make sure you don't have any glue on your work area. Okay, now we're going to take these three right here and glue them onto the front. When you put the glue on it, you're going to want to dab your finger to spread it out evenly. I keep brushing over the walls because this dark blue just shows up everything. But once we are done with the front of it, we're going to take a sponge and take a wood color and add some chipping to it. Now you've got this piece and this piece, and the difference between them is that the top one has engraved lines on it to show you where the pillars go, and there's another part, a section that's cut out. You'll see there's like the door and then two sections cut out, where the bottom one only has one section cut out. So that'll get glued on top just like that. Again, put your glue on it, and then we're going to want to dab our finger over it to kind of even it all out. And you really do want to even it out over the entire thing. Make sure it's all covered. We don't want any of it lifting up. Make sure it lines up and that it's pressed together good and tight. Okay, next we're going to take the wall that we just glued together and we're going to add the three pillars. And I'll show you quick. There's engraved lines to show you where they go. But this is the top of it, and it doesn't go level to the top. Make sure that it's level at the bottom of the wall. But you'll notice how there's a raised piece and then another raised piece. That's the top. Again, dab the glue so that if you don't dab it and you just put a line on there, when you press it down, it'll ooze out the sides. Make sure that it's level with the bottom of the wall. So you'll see there's 2 engraved lines. Make sure the pillar goes in between those 2 lines. Okay, now we'll do the end one. So again, line up the bottom first and then press it down, making sure that it's right on the edge. Okay, next we want to take this wall again. This is the top. It's thinner at the top and it has a thicker wall at the bottom. There is a shelf that goes in there right below the window. So I just simply put it right below the plastic that we glued in there. Now the top one, let's see. It's up to you. You can glue it right at the top or glue it on this piece first. I don't want to confuse you, so I'm just going to glue it right at the very top. So the white side is facing up and then the blue painted side faces down. I'll show you. Make sure it's completely level with the top. Now eventually this piece gets glued on top of it like that. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So now with these 2 pieces, you might want to give them a little bit of time to dry. And then we're going to do some chipping with a sponge and some paint. Let's see what color. Well, you could either use a color called fawn. It's a nice wood color. Or this color, iced coffee. And I don't know if it's still called iced coffee. They might have changed the name of it. They may have actually changed the color. I don't know. I haven't bought this in a very long time. Now you have to be careful because you don't want to get this on the windows. And actually, before we paint that, in the cracks where we folded it, you can kind of see some white. I don't know if the camera's picking up on that. So I just want to take our blue, the Royal Navy, and a very small brush. And you know what? We will I'm going to paint the edge of this. I'm going to go pretty thick on the edge to fill in the crack between the pillar and the wall. Now we can add our chipping. Notice I'm going very slow, just taking my time. I'll show you this quick. Okay, now I'll go ahead and do this section. I feel when you use the tweezers with the sponge that you tend to be more delicate with it. Where if you just grab it with your finger, you tend to press a little harder, and then towards the end you start really just dabbing it on. Now if you want to, take a very fine brush, kind of like dry brushing, and we're just going to hit the edges of some of this raised stuff. Just doing some dry brushing. Okay, now we'll take this piece and glue it to the front of this. You want to dry fit it first. Make sure you know exactly where it's going and how it's going to fit. Now make sure that it's flush at the bottom. And then this piece here, you'll see there's engraved line on it. That goes on top, just like that. So first, let's do some chipping on it. So remember, the engraved line goes on the bottom. So you want to do most of the chipping on the top. So you want to put glue on the back side of it. And then inside that area that's engraved on there. And then we'll put a little bit of glue on the top of each pillar. Want to make sure it's straight. Make sure the edges are flush. I gotta slide mine a little bit that way. And then we want to take a clean brush and clean up any of the extra glue. So it should be flush on the top and flush on the sides. And if you do have any little cracks, what you can do is take the blue paint and put it on kind of thick and fill that crack. And then just maybe take your blade while the paint's wet and lightly drag it over, and it'll fill in that crack. Now there is a rooftop that gets glued on right here, so don't be too concerned about painting up here. Let's move on to the wood walls. Okay, we want to cut the windows out. There's just a tab at the top and a tab at the bottom. Okay, now we'll add our bracing. So this is the back wall. I'll just quick show you how this goes. So here is our base. This is the front sidewalk. So the wall that we just made will sit right there. Then this back wall that has the door in it will sit there. Then we have a side wall and another side wall, and then this is the front wall that goes like that. Okay, let's add our bracing. Okay, the bracing is finished. Let me go over the walls with you. So this is the back wall, and you want your bracing to go all the way to the edge. Then the front wall, again, bracing all the way to the edge. Then your two side walls, you want that bracing to come in the thickness of the bracing, so like 1/8 of an inch from each side. So what I suggest doing is do your edge pieces first, then whatever you have left over, then go ahead and put some in the middle. Now be sure to leave enough for our piece that goes from the back wall to the front wall. Okay, now I'm just taking a file and cleaning up those windows. Make sure there's no little nubs in there where you cut out that piece. Okay, now I just went through and with my blade I lifted some of the boards and then cut some. I'll show you. Okay, now normally I put a stain on these and then paint them. I am actually going to spray paint these. Okay, so I spray painted these with this from Rust-Oleum. It's a camouflage paint and it's flat khaki. Okay, I then lined up the bottom of the walls and then masked the top, and I went that thick. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we're going to take our Royal Navy and lightly paint over this so that it matches that front. Okay, now we're going to take our murky brown and we're going to stain these walls. Now if you wanted to add nail holes, now would be the time to do it. This just darkens the walls and adds some age to it. Okay, if I wanted to tell you that if you put stain over acrylic paint, it does take a little while to dry. You're going to want to take a hair dryer or let it sit overnight. You'll notice that it's going to feel tacky for a while. Okay, next we're going to do some chipping just like we did on the front. Okay, next we're going to take all of our window frames and get those all glued on. Okay, all of the window frames are glued on. Now we have to take a brush and paint the inside that blue color, our Royal Navy. So we'll just take a brush and paint the inside of each window. Then we'll take a sponge and go back and do some chipping over all those window frames. Now, I know I'll get people who will ask me why I chose to spray paint these walls. They'll reference another video where I stained everything first, then brushed on color, or I sprayed a gray primer on everything, then put on the final cover. I just don't want to get bored with doing the same technique over and over and over. All the techniques that I show on my channel, they work. And you get different effects from each technique. If I were to spray this with a gray primer first, then put the colors, it would make the colors darker. It would have an effect on the colors, where I sprayed the colors directly over the wood, which is pretty light. So it gives it a different look. That's all. Same with the chipping. You know, some people probably prefer to do the chipping maybe all at the end, all at once. And I just like to mix it up. Like I did some chipping, then I did the window frames. Now I'll paint the inside, do some more chipping. It just kind of breaks things up, just so that, again, so that I'm not doing the same thing over and over and over in every single video. Okay, so I'm working on the windows. And what I do is I smear some super glue on some paper. Then I just take the window, dip it in, and then lay it on the clear plastic. And then we'll cut around it and glue them in place. So again, just dip it in the glue and then sort of dab it so that there's not a whole bunch of thick glue on there. And then just put it on the plastic. Okay, all the windows are glued in, and I just put a dab of super glue below the plastic and above the plastic. You can see that. So now we just gotta let all these dry. So while that's drying, let's paint our base. So I'm using slate gray and desert sand. And I'm just doing 50-50. Okay, so I just added some dirt with some pastels, and I added a few cracks. For the cracks, I just used my blade, put them in, and then took a fine brush with some dark gray pastel chalk and went over it. Front wall and the back wall both get vents put at the top. So there's one of the vents, and each vent gets a frame. So first, put that frame where you want it. Then we're going to take a pencil. You should get a really sharp pencil or something with a really fine point to trace the inside of that. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clapboards down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now we have to paint that black. Okay, I just put in the window shades, and all I did was painted the back of the plastic. Okay, now we have a couple signs to put on. A few, actually. Okay, I cut out all of the signs. Now we're going to get them glued on. Now I did not sand the back of these. I just simply cut them out and glued them on. And I'm just taking my fingernail and running it in all of the boards. Okay, now we have 2 signs, and one goes on this piece, and that's in the sheet with the fire escape. And then this one here, which was in the sheet with all of the the windows. This sign gets glued on there, and then it has a frame that goes around it. All right, so we've painted one side blue, but the other side is the color of the material, and that's the side I'm going to put the glue on and put the sign on it. The only reason I'm doing that is because the blue may change how dark or light the sign is. It would darken it up. So you wouldn't have to put the frame on it if you don't want to. Yeah, let me take a dark gray marker and go over the edges. I don't think I'm going to put the frame around it. Okay, that gets glued right on top of there. Okay, we'll worry about this sign later. Again, we need to spray a gray primer on both sides of this piece and then glue the sign to it. We'll put it right up there. Okay, let's go ahead and start gluing some of this together. Oh, and in the kit, in the instructions, there is a picture of books on the shelf. And I just simply cut it out and tape that onto the back. Okay, we'll start with the back wall. So this is the front with the sidewalk. This is the back wall here. And this side, 5 windows. That goes on this side. Now we'll take this wall and put it on the other side. Okay, now very carefully, I'm going to cut the corner trim. In hindsight, I probably should have put the corner trim on the walls when they were flat. Now, after we get these glued on, we'll put some chipping on them. Okay, let's get the corner trim here. This one's a little tricky. Let's get this front piece glued on. So for now, we're just going to put that right there. And that'll tell us how high we got to glue it. It's always interesting building this, or building kits without instructions. And then really trying to put it together the easiest way possible so that you have success when you put yours together. Now, it's very important to not glue that on yet. Now, the corner trim goes all the way from the top to the bottom. Okay, again, I want to stress that that goes from the bottom all the way to the top. Now, when I put this up here, unfortunately, there's a gap. I don't know if you can see it. It's small. But what I'm going to do, I don't know why. That may have... No, it looks... It's like this is a little too high, but it's the same I can see the spacing is the same, so you know, just for the heck of it, because I'm curious. Okay, so I marked the peak on here. Yeah, they're the same. But there's a little gap. We're going to fill that in. We're just going to take our corner trim and cut a piece that goes right underneath that wall. I cut it a little bit too long on purpose so that all I have to do is take my file, my small file, file each side just a little until it fits perfect. Alright, that takes care of the problem. So you can paint that the color of the wall or leave it blue. You may not have a space on yours. Okay, nice. Now, what we're going to do is sponge on our wood color on the corners. Okay, let's make sure this fits on our base. And it does. Perfect. Okay, let's glue the building onto the base. Okay, it goes right to the corners. And you can see the wall goes right behind the sidewalk. Had a little extra glue there. Oop, I see a little extra glue down here. Okay, I'm going to take the Royal Navy blue very lightly, very lightly. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm going to put some chipping on the sign. Let me quick do the other side and I'll show you. Okay, I sprayed both sides of this with a gray primer, and then I glued the sign on the front. I then took my sponge and sponged on bittersweet chocolate for some rust. Now that will eventually get glued on the side right there. But I don't want to glue it on yet because I don't want to risk breaking it off. So let's move on to the roof cards. We have a large one that goes on the main building here, and then there's a little one, and that gets glued here in front. You know, I'm going to wait to cut out the little one because there's definitely a top and a bottom. Okay, we'll set that to the side. And I'm just going to score this a little bit. Just going to run my blade over the center very lightly. Okay, now let's paint the underside of this the blue color. Okay, remember we set aside this piece? Now we'll glue that in place right up here. And the length should be the length of that wall without the corner trim. So just that tan wall, the length of that, that's how long that piece should be. I say that because these are kind of bowed out a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of play in there, so we'll glue it and press those two together. Like always, you want to test fit it to make sure that it works, and make sure that, you know, one direction may work better than the other direction. Okay, I've added the trim at the top underneath the overhang, both the front and the back. Now I have all of my tar paper cut, and now we'll just simply start to put it on, starting at the bottom and then slightly overlapping as it goes up. Okay, I just did some dry brushing of light gray on the rooftop. We'll go in with some pastels too. Now there's a roof that goes right here on the front, and in your roof card it's right here, and I've already painted it and put a little bit of weathering. I just dry brushed on it, but this is the top and this is the bottom. I will show you how to tell the difference though. So if you just cut the roof cards out and maybe you paint them and now you don't know what the top is or what the bottom is, but there's angled pieces on the side, and you can see this one is shorter than this one. I don't know if you can see the difference. So the top angle is shorter than the bottom angle. You can score these a little bit if you want, right on that engraved line. Now it'll get glued in place like this. Now I want to point out, if you have it upside down, look how high it goes up into the windows. So if you flip it around, okay, I'll show you. Mine is glued in place, and you'll see it does come up on those window frames a little bit. Okay, now I've already built the fire escape. Very simple. Here's one that is still in the sheet. So you'll see right here, there's engraved lines, and you'll probably want to cut those a little bit deeper. And then these get folded back. The two sides get folded back, and it gets glued around the base. So here's what it looks like. There's the bottom. Okay, now we'll get that glued on the side. First, you just want to hold it up there to decide where you want it. Maybe mark it. Okay, then we have a little smokestack. And we'll put that right about there. So I'm just making a hole with my knife. I should probably be using a drill bit, but okay, then we have a vent. Hopefully you can see that. We're going to glue that on the side. Okay, then we'll take our sign. We'll figure out where we want that. I lined up the bottom of the sign with the that blue strip right there for the bottom of that window, just to give you an idea of where I placed it. Okay, the last thing that I glued on was the bookstore sign. And you can see there's a post coming out of the bottom of the book. I just put super glue on the end of it and stuck it right on the ledge there. And there's a space. It's actually not touching the building. There's a space between it. So I thought I was completely finished with this. And I started photographing it, and I realized that this whole bay window section, I glued it on upside down. The thinner part is supposed to be at the bottom, and the thicker part is at the top because it matches the thicker part above the door. And now it really, really bothers me. So I'm going to attempt to take that out of there, but I don't know. Well, I don't know. Wish me luck. Okay, that's not bad. That is not bad. So, this popped off. That's okay. We'll just glue that. Okay, first, let's file this. Yeah, we're just going to take that off. Now we can. I took that off the bottom because I want to raise it so there's actually a little shelf in there. Okay, let's see if we can glue this. Man, I'm so glad I got this off. It would have just bothered me. A little extra glue in there. Okay, now let's get this glued back in place. Have some extra glue. Okay, wow. Man. Whew. So now you can see that that matches all the way across. Okay, now we are done. And what I'm going to do is I am going to record a little segment. I'll put it at the beginning saying that there's a mistake that I made during the video. Be sure to watch until the very end to see how the mistake was corrected. Something like that. All right. I want to point this out. I was able to redo this because I don't overuse glue. I don't put a ton of glue on there because once it's sitting on your layout or your diorama, no one's going to be touching it. There's no need to over glue and make it like super strong. Because like I said, once it's built and put in place, it's just sitting there. There's no reason to have it really super strong. Okay, now this project is finally finished. You know, I was so close to making this dark red instead of blue, and I was going to use French wine or just any deep red, almost a burgundy. I think it would have looked really nice. I just decided to go with the blue. A dark green would look really nice too. All right, let me take the camera off and give you a closer look. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this build. I had so much fun building this. And again, I do apologize for gluing the bay window in upside down. It was pretty easy to fix it, and again, it's because I don't overuse glue when I'm assembling the kits. So keep that in mind. And be sure to refer to the picture on the package and instructions to make sure that you don't make the same mistake. All right, well, the kit is available on my website at jasonjensentrains.com. And again, if you are a paid Patreon member, you receive a $9 discount on the kit. All right, well, thank you all so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. And until next time, stay motivated and happy modeling, everyone.